Israel scales up attacks on Lebanon, killing hundreds and warning there's more to come.
Get out of harm's way now.
What Israel claims it's targeting and why Iran calls it a trap. Also on this Monday night, Michael Kovrig, in his own words.
I was grabbed out of the blue by about a dozen men.
New details about the former hostage's time in a Chinese prison. What kept him strong?
And nothing is going to stop me.
And what haunts him to this day. Helping Haiti, Prime Minister Trudeau's solution that doesn't involve cash from Canada. And brewing up change.
It's a very, very approachable beer.
The Calgary company crafting a way to help protect Canadian forests.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Israeli warplanes have struck deep inside Lebanon, killing almost 500 people and injuring more than 1,600. That's according to Lebanon's health ministry. Tonight, Israel's prime minister is hinting there is more to come, warning the Lebanese people to get out of harm's way now. The U.S. has announced it is sending more troops to the region. Lebanon's state-run news agency says the majority of the strikes hit southern Lebanon, some reportedly reaching as far as 150 kilometers from the Israeli border. The IDF claims to have hit more than 1,300 of what it calls Hezbollah targets. Among the 492 people killed are, according to Lebanese authorities, children, women, and paramedics. It is the deadliest day of Israeli attacks in Lebanon since 2006, and there's concern Israel could be preparing for a ground incursion. Jackson Proskow has our top story on the two sides moving closer to all-out war.
In strike after strike, Israel opened a new front in the conflict, taking aim at what it said were hundreds of Hezbollah positions inside Lebanon, along with a senior commander. Just like before its operation in Gaza, Israel told civilians to flee.
Get out of harm's way now. Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. It placed rockets in your living rooms and missiles in your garage.
Hezbollah responded in kind with a barrage of rockets fired at Israel, which were quickly intercepted by the Iron Dome.
I have a message for the people of Lebanon. Israel's war is not with you. It's with Hezbollah.
The fiercest fighting in nearly 2 decades began when Israel is believed to have detonated thousands of pagers and walkie-talkies last week, killing dozens and injuring thousands.
What keeps this from becoming a broader war potentially is Hezbollah getting the message that the Israelis are really serious.
Israel now says it's moving to the next phase of the conflict, as Iran, which backs Hezbollah, warns that Israel is seeking all-out war.
All the parties involved in this conflict is step back from the brink. Stop the escalation.
In a sign of what could come, the U.S. says it's moving additional troops to the region, while in northern Israel, school is canceled and hospitals have moved to underground bunkers.
We need to be prepared for the worst-case scenario.
If Israel's hope is to break Hezbollah's resolve, this may be a lengthy fight. The militant group has vowed to press on until Israel ends its campaign against Hamas in Gaza. Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.
Ukraine's president is in the U.S. Volodymyr Zelenskyy is expected to present a plan for victory to President Joe Biden and Biden's potential successors, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. His visit follows an intense summer of fighting, with Moscow advancing in the east and Kyiv holding on to swaths of Russia's Kursk region. Russia's foreign ministry said today at least 56 civilians have been killed and 256 others wounded during Ukraine's 7-week-old incursion. In a post shared on social media as he arrived in New York, Volodymyr Zelenskyy said this fall will determine the future of this war. Canada's Prime Minister is in New York, too, for the annual gathering of world leaders at the UN General Assembly. Trying to bring some measure of stability to Haiti is Canada's focus. That Caribbean nation is mired in deep poverty, a lack of security, and gang violence. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is making the case that Haiti's humanitarian needs are the immediate priority. Mackenzie Gray is traveling with the Prime Minister.
It's a key Canadian foreign policy concern.
It's a real pleasure to sit down with Prime Minister Trudeau to talk about the challenges in Haiti.
Challenges that are massive. Violence and unrest as gangs across Port-au-Prince are crippling Haitian society, leading the UN to form a special group dedicated to solving the problem.
This is a global effort, so I call upon every nation here and every nation not here to do their part as well.
Despite those lofty words, Trudeau did not announce any new money for Haiti, instead leaving it to Kenya to spearhead a UN police force that could soon change shape.
On the suggestion to transit this into a fully UN peacekeeping mission, we have absolutely no problem if that is the direction the UN Security Council want to take.
Something Canada's ambassador to the UN supports.
We can't let this gang issue fester, because if it keeps festering in Haiti, it's going to spread.
The Liberals unwilling to commit police or troops to the Kenyan police force to help stabilize the situation where there are chronic food and water shortages.
So we're just willing to write checks and not go boots on the ground. Is that still the position of the government?
Our position has always been to fund.
Trudeau later pivoted from conflict,
Prime Minister, what's your message tonight?
to comedy, appearing on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, much to the chagrin of this BC family in attendance.
We can see him in Canada anytime, so we have to come to New York to see him. It's not the greatest holiday, but we'll take it.
Liberal sources say Colbert's producers have been reaching out for years to try and get Trudeau on the show, and PMO views this as an opportunity, Donna, to reach out to Canadians who don't always watch the news.
Okay. Mackenzie Gray in New York, thanks. A federal judge in Florida has ordered the suspect in an apparent assassination attempt on former U.S. President Donald Trump to be held without bail until his trial. In new court filings today, the Justice Department says the accused, 58-year-old Ryan Routh, spent a month in Florida stalking and planning to kill Trump. He was arrested September 15th, laying in wait with a rifle outside a golf course where the former president was playing. A witness told investigators Routh had, about a month before, left a box with him containing a handwritten letter saying, "Dear world, this was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, but I failed you." The mayor of Birmingham, Alabama, is vowing to apprehend the suspects in a mass shooting over the weekend. 4 people were killed, more than a dozen others hurt, when shots were fired outside a hookah lounge on Saturday night.
Do not tell me this is not solvable. Do not tell me this is only on the police to solve. Elected officials, locally, statewide, and nationally, have a duty to solve this American crisis.
This is Birmingham's third quadruple homicide this year. A $100,000 award is being offered for information leading to an arrest. In Germany, Chancellor Olaf Scholz's Social Democrats have narrowly beaten the far-right anti-immigrant Alternative for Germany party in the German state of Brandenburg. 3 weeks ago, the AfD made strong gains in 2 other state elections. As Redmond Shannon reports, it's making inroads and gathering support ahead of a national election in Germany next year.
Du entscheidest.
You decide, says the ad for the AfD party. You decide whether your hometown has a food market or a drug market. The AI-generated election post contrasting positive images of blonde white Germans with negative tropes of dark-skinned immigrants, in particular Muslims. After the far-right AfD won its first ever state election this month, the party co-chair said German schools are being flooded with Muslim children from archaic backgrounds.
Today, the target group is the Muslim community, I will say it like that, even not the extremists, but the Muslim community by himself. Tomorrow, we are.
Israeli German Jew Gadi Gronich says the traditional parties that have ruled modern Germany need to act on extremism, but they also should listen to worries about migration.
It's coming to a moment where the local society is afraid, is concerned.
Last week, Germany imposed new police checks on its land borders. Former Chancellor Angela Merkel's decision to welcome 1 million Syrian refugees 9 years ago was initially seen as a success, but it has now come up against inflation and a housing crunch. Klaus Goetz studies the far right.
And ever since, migration, asylum, integration policy have been very close to the top of the agenda.
Germany's courts label AfD as suspected of extremism. Every other party says it won't go into government with AfD. But if its support keeps rising ahead of next September's federal vote, Germany's so-called political firewall may come under pressure.
If there were an election today, the far-right AfD would probably be the second strongest force in the Bundestag, which is quite remarkable given our history.
Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
There's a troubling snapshot of how much public money Canadian hospitals and nursing homes are spending on for-profit private nursing. A study by the Canadian Federation of Nurses Union projects $1.5 billion in public health dollars will be paid to for-profit nursing agencies in the 2023-24 fiscal year. That's about a six-fold increase, it says, since 2020, and it's about the same as what the federal government has committed to launching a national pharmacare program. Since the pandemic, hospitals and nursing homes have been relying heavily on private companies to supply temporary nurses to fill gaps in the system, paying a premium for the service. In Manitoba, the search for a 6-year-old boy missing since Wednesday has come to a tragic end. RCMP say Johnson Redhead's body was found in a marshy area last night, less than 4 kilometers from the school where he was last seen. Police say he had attended a breakfast program but did not show up in class after that. In northern BC, a 6-year-old girl who disappeared on Thursday has been found safe. Oakland Schweder was discovered in a forested area near her home in Burns Lake. Family friends captured the moment she was reunited with her mother. The 6-year-old spent 72 hours lost in thick bush near Burns Lake. She was found in an area that had previously been searched. Police believe the young girl, who is on the autism spectrum and mostly nonverbal, moved around during the time she was missing. Michael Kovrig recounts his nightmare. Coming up, the Canadian held in a Chinese prison for almost 3 years describes what he endured. We're hearing for the first time from Michael Kovrig, one of the 2 Michaels detained in China for more than 1,000 days. The Canadian government said the Canadian men were political pawns, arbitrarily detained in response to the arrest of Chinese tech executive Meng Wanzhou in Vancouver. In the 3 years since his release, Kovrig hasn't gone public with what he endured and how he kept hope alive. Now he is. He sat down with Jeff Semple for an extensive interview. Jeff.
Donna, Michael Kovrig told me that he and his girlfriend were walking home from a dinner date one night in December 2018 when their lives were upended.
I was grabbed out of the blue by about a dozen men in black. They stuffed me into a car and took me to a secret black jail and then proceeded to interrogate me relentlessly.
Chinese officials accused the former Canadian diplomat of espionage without evidence. Kovrig remained in solitary confinement with no daylight for nearly 6 months.
And it's the confinement and the isolation that are really psychologically brutally difficult. And there were times where I kind of descended into a sort of psychological pit of self-pity and feeling that, you know, the world has forgotten about me.
In those darkest moments, I mean, what kept you going?
It became quickly clear that so many people were trying to solve this problem, were working so hard on it. And that coming together was enormously inspiring for me. That really meant a lot to feel how much that was going on.
These are all the letters.
Eventually, Kovrig was able to receive a handful of letters from the outside.
One day I got this little card from, and I didn't recognize it, and it was from a little boy in Victoria, BC. I've never even been to Victoria, and he was telling me to hang on, and that was one of those moments where I realized, like, geez, this is a lot bigger than me.
Kovrig developed a strict routine, every day walking 7,000 steps in his cell, practicing yoga, and singing Leonard Cohen songs, including Waiting for a Miracle. But this was his greatest source of strength. 3 months after his arrest, his daughter Clara was born.
I just tried to live moment by moment with the sense that I'm going to come out of here and I'm going to take care of my daughter. Yeah. And nothing is going to stop me.
2.5 years later, Canada released Chinese tech executive Meng Wanzhou. Within hours, the two Michaels were on a plane, stepping onto Canadian soil, embracing freedom, and meeting his daughter for the first time.
And that first meeting with her was one of the most heartwarming moments of my life. I thought, you know, how's she going to react to me? But she'd been kind of prepared that I was Daddy, and this is what Daddy looks like. This is the sound of Daddy's voice, because we had recordings of those things. So we bonded immediately, and you know, really very, very quickly connected, and have a very strong connection now. I had been given a second lease on life, and I just had this amazing sense of wonder and appreciation of the world.
Kovrig now lives with his family in Europe, working to heal and turn the page. But last year, the allegations came crashing back. A newspaper report, citing anonymous sources, claimed Michael Spavor blamed Kovrig for his detention and was demanding compensation, claiming Kovrig was a spy who tricked him into providing intelligence.
Your response to those allegations?
Sure. No, I'm happy to set the record straight, frankly, because it's really quite simple. The allegations are false, and there has never been any evidence of any kind presented to support it. And anyone who looks at the details and understands the context in China understands that it makes no sense. And the most frustrating part of that episode was that then what happened? Communist Party's media organs and propaganda organs took the Western distorted and confused reporting on that and turned it into their own disinformation and propaganda.
Kovrig has recently been touring the world and the country to personally thank those who helped to secure his release. And he's also been warning about the growing threat posed by the Chinese Communist Party, which he says Canadians aren't prepared for. Donna?
Jeff, thanks. There was much more covered during that conversation. You can watch the full interview with Michael Kovrig on our website, globalnews.ca. Safely back on Earth ahead, a record-setting mission comes to an end.
Right on the money, a textbook touchdown.
They are finally back on Earth, thanks to a Russian Soyuz spacecraft. 2 Russian cosmonauts were on the International Space Station for 374 days, setting a new record for the longest continuous stay. They orbited Earth almost 6,000 times. American Tracy Dyson was up in the space station for 6 months. The second week of testimony into the ill-fated Titan submersible is underway. The co-founder of OceanGate says he hopes the disaster doesn't mean the end of deep-sea exploration.
This can't be the end of deep-diving submersibles, and I don't believe that it will be. But I hope that someday in the near future, we'll look back on this time as a major turning point in human history.
Guillermo Sonline co-founded OceanGate with Stockton Rush in 2009, but had left the company 10 years before the fatal implosion that killed everyone on board last year. He said OceanGate called passengers mission specialists to fulfill U.S. Coast Guard regulations, which he said were more stringent for passenger subs than underwater research vessels. Also today, an expert in submersible design and construction told the panel that using carbon fiber for a hull such as the Titan's would not be considered an acceptable material. Fire bloom next, a Calgary brewery's creation in the aftermath of wildfires. These bulls were in no mood for a rodeo. They broke out of their pen in Massachusetts and headed for the parking lot. People ducked and weaved for cover as 8 bulls ran free. Authorities managed to wrangle 1 before it got away. 6 more were found a few hours later at a nearby home, but one of those bulls is still on the loose. Many Canadian communities have been devastated by wildfires in recent years. Those fires can, in some ways, be a source of renewal. Fireweed is one of the first plants to grow after an area has been scorched by flames. Now, that pink blossom is being used to raise money for forest research and recovery through the creation of a new beer. Heather Urix-West explains.
It's a scene that's become an all too familiar part of Western Canadian summers.
out-of-control flames, evacuation orders, and traveling blankets of choking thick smoke.
I feel like it's just front of mind for everyone. We're experiencing more frequent and severe wildfires every year.
It's why the owners of a small brewery in Calgary set out to create a beer that could somehow try to help.
Initially, we wanted to brew a beer that was using some ingredients from the burnt forest. So we thought of like a charred wood beer or like a smoked ale or something like that.
That was until they learned about how out of the ashes grow the pink blossoms of the fireweed.
It does well in those open habitats where there's, full sun and it can really, soak up that sun and those nutrients. And so that's where we see the fireweed.
Now growing in abundance across Western Canada, the plant yields honey, this brewery sourced from the BC's Okanagan Valley. Creating a honey lager it calls Fire Bloom.
It's a very, very approachable beer. People are really enjoying it.
A portion of the sales from the beer is being donated to the Jasper Fire Caring Community Fund to help residents of the town recover from the wildfire that destroyed more than a third of their community last July. The University of Alberta's Project Forest, which helps support climate change research, is benefiting from beer sales too.
We're looking to increase biodiversity, store carbon, and basically increase the forest cover on the landscape.
A brew intended to satisfy thirst and fuel hope for the future, as it also helps foster forest life cycles. Heather Yurex West, Global News, Calgary.
That is Global National for this Monday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Evangeline Beach in Grand Pré, Nova Scotia. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.